Perfect.
Brilliant, lovely. Right? Yeah, you can't not look like a professor. You're a professor. Right? I always look like the lunatic who happens to know a professor. So, yes, we're super excited because, well, obviously I get to chat to you a lot, but also the more I read into the whole biorecs, and so for our guys, I've been asked a few questions to ask you, obviously because nobody wants to read anymore. Yeah. So, from the top, biorecs, tell those that are watching, tell them how did it begin? Where did you come up with this concept?
Okay. So in 2006, you know that at the Catholic University of Leuven, we had a rather big research team with continuously 25 to 30 PhD students in the team. And at some moment in 2006, one of the people came to me to say, I have read that AC Milan is reducing injuries with 80%, and they use a certain type of neural network to do that. I said, I think it's quite impossible because these neural networks, that's a group average. It's not adapting to each individual. So let's give them a phone call. And we phoned to AC Milan. We were lucky. It was the director of the Milan lab, which in those days was really advanced. They were years ahead of other sports teams. And we had a long discussion in that first phone. And 3 months later, we made a contract. And the question was, can you monitor the mental state of these players while they move on the pitch? Can you do that in real time? And nobody could do it. I said, there is no guarantee. We will be able to monitor the physical energy use, the mental. I have no idea. But we started. They gave us all the support beside the big contract where I started Biorix as a company. We did over 550 experiments where we also had a gold standard for mental state. And that was a lying detector. So we monitored, they were training on the pitch. It took us a year to give them the right sensors because in those days there was no wireless like accelerometer, but it took us a year. Finally, we started there. Immediately after the training, we did bring these top players to what was called the Mind Room, which was a commercial lying detector from a Canadian company. So it measures EEG, ECG, blood analysis, saliva analysis, respiration rate, and skin conductivity. That is, and we could monitor 6 players at the same time. And we compared what we monitored with our technology to that gold standard. Yeah. It took us 1.5 years until we finally got that idea to use activity and heart rate to see how much energy they use during the night with the wearable. Then when they move, then in the immune system, and then the leftover is the mental. That is, it took us 3 years. And then after 3 years, they said, whoa, this is more than accurate enough. I was like, no, this is not good enough. We have an 80% agreement. They said, no, no, no. This is more than we ever had. Can you bring it in a commercial way? And we spent over 100,000 euro with another company to make a user-friendly system. It was really fantastic. It was a screen with a chronometer. And if they push the chronometer, the measuring starts. And the player only had to wear a vest and go on the pitch. And he was monitored. He came off the pitch, the monitoring stopped. It was a really fantastic system. And a month before we said, okay, we arranged with a company to send it to them in box. It was all packed in boxes, the computer and the whole system. And they phoned me, we come tomorrow. And then they said, Ancelotti leaves. He's turning down the financial support. He's taking the psychologist with him. He goes to Chelsea. We have to fire people in the Milan lab. And we stopped the project. But luckily, 3 weeks later, Adidas from Pennsylvania called, can you work for us? We want to bring your algorithm in a t-shirt. And that was, we were
I
lucky.
mean, that's like, what?
Yeah, yeah,
That's really is prayers answered. It's unreal.
yeah. And 2 years later, before we finished Adidas, there was Bosch von Automotive in Stuttgart. Even more interesting because everybody said you never get in automotive, but we made it there. Yeah, yeah. So the whole idea was, and that is what we got from AC Milan project. You need an individualized algorithm. It didn't work until we start to make the algorithm individual.
Yeah.
And
A team, there's too many moving parts. I mean, in one human being, there's a lot of moving parts. When you take
right,
a team, it's just, yeah.
right, right. And I remember in the research team, nobody believed me. All the PhDs said, now he went completely crazy. This is impossible. But we started to work and make algorithms that adapt to the individual body and mind. And we discovered we need 3 days and 3 nights for that. And then I think about 1 year later, what we then said, to have it individual is even not good enough because the same individual will today respond in this way and tomorrow in another way and 30 minutes later yet in another way. So we
And
made it
depending on who comes in the door, another way.
exactly what you say, exactly. And then we made it that we update the algorithm every minute, where for race driving, we do it every second for each individual. Yeah.
So the one obviously I'm wearing now, this is updating every minute. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The Fitbit does it every minute. Yeah. That is useful for people like you and me during the job. But like in racing, a minute is far
Yeah.
too
Well,
short.
well, a minute the race is over.
Oh yeah,
The
but
accident's
they
happened. I'm
go,
already in the
yeah,
ambulance. Or
they go sometimes 300 kilometers per hour. So there we do it every second.
what is that a special type of Fitbit or
That's
is it?
what we used in the past was the Mio, a Canadian product. Now we use the Garmin Phoenix 7. It's a very expensive thing. It's what about €700. But
Yeah.
what is stupid, if you want to measure every second with that device, you have to stop all the other functions. So why do you why do you then use such an expensive thing?
Yeah.
The disadvantage of all these things is if you measure every second or even every minute, the battery is down
It's going
to
to
12
reduce
hours.
the power. Yeah.
Yeah. Where the Fitbit can go for a week. And the Garmin, if you measure every second, can also go for 10 days, but then it can do nothing else but measuring.
Right.
Yeah. And the good news is that now it's maybe Polar. They contacted us about 2 months ago because we have a bioengineer only testing all these wearables.
Can you spell that one for me? Is it Polar?
Polar, Polar. You
Oh,
know
Polar.
them. Yeah, sure, you know them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of
They-
course I have. Yeah, 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 yeah. Good.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
sorry.
Ah, don't worry, don't worry. What is interesting, they said, look, all these hardware producers like Garmin and Apple and Samsung, they go on the very expensive hardware, always
Yeah,
more expensive, more functions. That the function is a gadget doesn't matter. For most people, they don't care. They want just that function, sleep or whatever.
yeah,
Huh? But we make money on the hardware. That's what they say. So we stop also, like Fitbit is very tricky. They said, no, these simple things, we don't make enough money. They still are in that phase. They are not busy yet with strong algorithms. Okay. Polar, what they concluded, we don't want to compete them with more expensive hardware. We make a competitor for this Fitbit. But what is interesting, by Fitbit, you need two accounts, a Fitbit account, and since Google did take them over, also a Google account. For Polar, you need nothing. You buy the hardware and Byrix gets the data out directly without a license from Polar. That's a huge advantage. Now we are testing, we have the device. It's a beta version. It's not a commercial product. And we are testing it now. And because last week they phoned for first results, but we see it is indeed a beta version. It takes us too much efforts to get the data out. They have to, but that's normal. That's absolutely normal. To develop such a product is not simple. Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. I was in discussion yesterday. It's another call, but a discussion I was in yesterday was, could we make obviously a version that just for sleep, that hooks straight into Biorix, straight into our, so that is it's a closed user group.
Yeah.
That's specific, that keeps our data with us and
Yes.
yourselves.
You're
Very
right.
specific group, and how much. And the thing is, we both know this technology isn't expensive.
You are right. You are right. So a month ago, I took 3 days. I went, they invited me for a big conference in China, in Beijing. I said, I will come to speak as keynote, invited keynote at one condition. I want to meet with a top person of Xiaomi. You know them, eh?
Yeah,
Xiaomi.
yeah.
It is written Xiaomi. So Xi.
Yeah.
OAMI.
X
Xiaomi.
I
Xiaomi.
X I O A M I.
Let me see. AOMI. I was wrong.
XIAOMI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We would pronounce it like Xiaomi,
Yeah.
and they pronounce it as Xiaomi.
Xiaomi. Yeah.
Yeah. So the point was, my question was, they have such a very simple device, which is only 20 euro. We have tested that for years and years. It's not bad, but there is some issues with the gaps in the data transfer. And my point was, can you not make such a thing which is like the Fitbit with also a temperature sensor included? And they said the bad news is that also we have decided to go for the big sport watches because we make more money. But we will bring you in contact with another company. They did. I had a meeting 2 weeks later with another company, and all these guys say, no, what you're asking for with temperature and that type of accuracy you're looking for, we cannot do it. But we are betting now on the Polar. And the other one is a device that we have now for 1 year. We've tested it. You don't need to recharge it anymore. No recharging required. And the problem is that also there is a big inaccuracy, and they promised us to send it in December, it will be January, with new software to improve the accuracy, because that is a big win.
Yeah.
No recharging. That is interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
That is fascinating.
Yeah. But technology is progressing for sure. So that is in any case, that's an advantage for us. Huh? Yeah.
So you can see from our side, we're looking the same. It doesn't make sense, Daniel, to duplicate where if you're on it, or it would be handy to merge a little bit of knowledge there, because once we find who it is, and there is a manufacturer there somewhere, whether China or India or they're there. So then we know the base cost is going to only maybe 10 euro.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at. But that allows us then to really to go crazy on sleep. The reason for this call, and we'll probably chop out all of that we were just talking about, because the reason for this call is for sleep specific users.
Yeah.
Look,
Look, what we have seen, we now maybe monitored around 4,000 people in different environments, the military, a lot of athletes in 34 companies, etc. What we see is that the balance between producing energy and using energy, the correlation between the balance score and the sleep score is, for normal people, it's around 60 to 65%. So that means about 60% of the variation of your balance score over the days is explained by the variation in sleep score. That's what it says. Okay. For nurses and surgeons in hospital, that is 75%. Why? They sleep worse. They have to leave the bed. They get a phone call in the night. The worse you sleep, the higher the correlation, because a bad sleep gives always a low balance score. Okay. For the military, we've now measured recruits for 2 years. We are finishing now, and we start in January in another country, another big project on military. There, the correlation between balance score and sleep score goes up to 85%. Because at 3 in the morning, they
You
ask
gotta be
these
ready.
guys, yeah, you must be ready to perform. We go now for an exercise of 6 hours with a 30-kilogram backpack, and yeah, they suffer. They suffer. Now, what is most important? So sleep is crucial. Yeah. The first advice when people have a low balance, and that is what we are automating now, then they get a graph of their balance score and sleep score, saying fully automated, look, you have a low balance score. We see that you have a low sleep score with a correlation of so much to balance. But in most cases, you also have a bad evening score. You don't prepare your brain to
Yeah,
sleep. You know how that works,
yeah.
huh? That we are automating now. That goes to everybody based on his or her individual data.
Now,
Okay.
I know how it works, but do explain to those watching how it works, if you wouldn't mind?
Sorry, how?
How does it, how are they not preparing themselves for sleep?
Okay. So what matters is if you keep the brain busy, you keep using energy. Yeah. And you keep your brain not in a relaxing mood, not in a relaxing state. So a lot of people, what do? They keep working on social media or on the computer, or like my wife, she looks late in the evening an exciting movie, and then she's complaining, I go to the bed, I cannot sleep. Yeah, that's correct. When I go to the bed, in 1 minute I sleep.
Yeah.
And then she
I can be asleep. If she brushes her teeth too long, I'm asleep. Boom.
but she's always like, you go down and before you lay down, you sleep. Yeah, but I was relaxing my brain. I didn't do anything. I listened to some music. I
Yeah,
just forget the whole stress of the day. I
yeah,
prepare myself to sleep. That is one thing. The other thing, regularity. I'm very disciplined. I go to the bed at 10:30. I
I'm
leave
about
the
to
bed.
sleep.
Yep. And I leave the bed at 6 in the morning, every day of the year the same, except maybe with Christmas party that all the kids and the grandkids are coming, it might be a
Yeah,
bit later. But for the rest, Saturday, Sunday, every day the same rhythm. That's important for your biorhythm.
yeah,
Yeah. Also, I do still a lot of traveling with the work in United States. In the plane, I train myself to sleep. If you sleep during these long flights, there's not a lot of problems with the jet lag. Of course, it's there, the varying light and the
yeah,
clock, but you are very good to go back immediately in the rhythm because you did sleep a lot. You prepare yourself. Eh? Sleep is the key to perform.
yeah.
So we have proven it in racing. We still have to publish that. AMG Mercedes, they asked to prepare 10 drivers for the 24 hours race at the Nuremberg Ring in Germany. That was 3 years ago. We asked all these people, use Mind Stretch from 1 month before the race and try to have as many green days as possible. Yeah. And then so there in one car, you have three drivers. So it's a 24-hour race. That means each driver has to drive 8 hours, and they do that in 4 stints of 2 hours each. Yeah. What we had in the 10 drivers, there was a top driver, he did Formula One testing. There was less good driver, and there was a very average guy. And there was one person, he took it very serious. He had 27, what we call green days in my
Wow.
27 before the
I,
race.
I mean,
Yeah.
I do. I enjoy hitting those greens, but it isn't easy.
No, it's not easy, but
You gotta live like a priest.
he took it really serious, like what we said about
Yeah.
sleep and the regularity and not drinking alcohol. He took it very serious. And who did the best performance during the 24 hours? That guy, an average driver. The top guy, he was much slower. The guy with 27 green days, he was 80% of the race in the mental focus zone when he was in the car. The other one, only 40%. Compare it to a jet lag. You come off the plane, you go to a meeting, it takes efforts to concentrate. It's that.
Yeah.
And the other thing is the correlation between the result on the track and the last sleep score, the last night. Now, good. Knowing this year, we were monitoring the Olympic jumping team in Belgium, which is a world top team, and they expect that they will have at least 2 gold medals in Paris. We asked them the same thing. Prepare yourself before the Olympic Games, and then during the game, you have different competitions over different days. Make sure you keep your regularity, keep monitoring. Okay, there's we had 7 horse riders on, in total, the preparation and the competition, 35 horses, because they all ride more horses, and in total 84 competitions in the preparation and the Olympic Games. There is a one-on-one relationship between the balance score and the competition result. So they get penalty points when the horse is touching the beam, and it falls, that is a penalty. If you take the penalty points and the balance score, one-on-one correlation. So the best rider, it's a lady. She in the first obstacle where she could go for gold, the horse was touching the beam. It was a penalty and it was already gone, the chance for gold. And we asked her after the Olympics, explain me what happened in that first obstacle. Do you agree that you were hesitating without self-confidence? You were mentally not prepared and you made the horse doubt. Yeah, you're spot on, she said, spot on.
Now, Daniel, this is where our work comes together.
Okay.
Because if she'd used our side at that moment before the race, her mind, and I've done it with skiers, different professionals. I did it with the Belgian skier, Axel. I did it with the Belgian indoor 400 meters hurdle, 400 meter sprint champion. I've done it with all of them, right? That lady had an emotional memory image. So before she even got on the horse, she had this running, which was triggering herself and the horse. The horse was absolutely capable, no doubt. But the horse, the size of its heart, it picks up the doubt in the rider.
Absolutely.
Now that's exciting. That's exciting.
So, and that makes horse riding a very complex sport because you have the rider, but also the horse, and both. So what we will prepare now, that is a video where we show in real time when the horses and the rider are taking an obstacle, that in real time we show the mental energy use, the physical of the rider, but also from the horse. We are preparing that.
Now, would you be able to, my wonderful friend, to give us access after you've done that for us just 24 hours later to approach the same thing after using Mind Reset?
Sure.
Because that gives us, again, clean data.
Sure.
This is when it's getting more exciting, Daniel, because I can see there's in a month after January 20th, I'm not sure what's happening January 20th. Something's happening somewhere. But after January 20th, the group we've got will then be getting a mouth guard fitted, and they're getting access to our system. At the moment, we're putting them through as they are, and we're looking at the data. But in a month, we get into the whole body and mind, and we're expecting to see it boom. We're pimping their ride, if you would.
Yeah.
If my theory is correct, what I'm suggesting is that when they're going to sleep. Now, you know how in sleep we say, oh, a lot of people have a bad habit. Now, it's interesting. What we're calling a bad habit is they're wanting to keep the mind busy. Now, is it possible subconsciously, the reason they're subconsciously keeping busy, they don't realize they're doing it, but as they're approaching sleep, and I wrote the paper a year ago, as they're approaching sleep, the emotional memory images begin to grow, because they want to download. The way I look at sleep has one thing and one thing only. It's connected to survival. And that survival is connected to our past and our future, and everything equals what we did today. So when we go to sleep, if there's something from our past still hanging around that needs clearing, it has a large emotional content. When we go and are approaching sleep, it's attempting to download. But what it's doing is it's triggering the system stress response. So we're gearing up when we should be gearing down. So what the person does is they keep busy. They're on their phone. They're reading a book. They're doing everything until they literally, boom, fall asleep. Because of this. Now, what I found is if we clear this, they can naturally say, oh, it's 10:30 now. They can prep to sleep because there's no threat response firing.
Yeah.
That's my hypothesis.
Yeah, but I think you are right, because that is why the regularity is so important, because 10:30 I go to sleep, it's my time. Yeah. And you have mentally, you are ready just to go to sleep. You're not busy with other things anymore. And that's the difference. That's just the difference.
So then what I'm looking then, the next piece that we're looking at, and that I want to chat to you about, is that once they've got over the first hurdle, so they're in sleep, around 2 a.m., REM appears. When you get to REM sleep, bam, the emotional memory image, bam, it's there. So their system is responding. Now, here's my hypothesis. I think I've shared with you. What I'm suggesting is during the day, in the waking state, there's a shock. We have a large intake of breath to charge the system for fight, flight, freeze, whatever, to survive. But now we're asleep. So what I'm suggesting in sleep mode, remember, it's all subconscious, so we all have a guess. In sleep mode, when that appears, because the system wants to clear it so that tomorrow is clear, ready for the day, it's emotionally overwhelming. So the system switches off the breath to wake us. To awaken us. Because there is a threat. So breathing in isn't going to wake us because we're asleep. So the system says, as a last resort, I will cut off your life support mechanism to awaken you to the threat.
Yeah.
So then we wake up, and people have, they have the mouth guards or whatever, or their mouth is sellotaped, to try and force them to breathe through the nose. But because the brain is shut off, because of the threat, we wake. When we wake, we're not conscious of this. We are conscious that the mouth guard nearly choked me, or the sellotape nearly choked me, or, oh, I need to take a pee. All of these we're conscious of. The thing we're not conscious of is that we just had a threat response to an emotional memory image. That's my hypothesis. Now, using your beautiful equipment and merging it with ours, after January 20th, we're going to implement a process that physically will hold the jaw into a position for poise, but we also have the app updated so it will interrupt and clear the emotional memory image ahead of sleep. Now you realize we're working then in a quantum position because we're
Yeah.
working ahead of time. It's not possible what we're doing. But what I'm suggesting is if it works, and I've demonstrated it enough times with individuals, if it works, it will clear the emotional memory image. If the emotional memory image is clear, the person should be able to sleep without central apnea because we've taken out that mental component. But if we put that physical component in, we should also be able to support going through obstructive apnea. And we're hoping that your wonderful equipment will be able to capture it. What would it look like?
Look, what is important in sleep, you know that the question is how many times do you go through the different sleep phases? Yeah. And you know that in the newest publications, the claim is that the REM sleep is not the one that gives the mental recovery, maybe the physical, but it's more the first and the third stage, which gives the mental recovery. In the master thesis that I have sent you, the unpublished thesis, we are preparing the publication. What we show is that what we monitor as the mental component in heart rate correlates to the first and the third stage. Yeah, that is fine, but we are not yet far enough. But what is important is also the duration of your sleep. And the mind stretch thing is sometimes 2 hours different from like Fitbit because we detect the moment of falling asleep 10 minutes too early up to 10 minutes too late. That's the best we get, but that is better than anyone because they measure it through activity, where we measure it when the body is switching down the energy production because you go to sleep. That is a switch in the brain, as you know. So there we have an advantage, but now we still have to work harder with the gold standard polysomnography through the different phases. And for that, we collaborate with Johan Verbraken like we did in the past, the professor in Antwerp, who is in Belgium now, the sleep expert. It used to be Raymond Klutz, but he has retired. I don't know, all these retired guys, they are lost for the society.
Sadly.
Hey, I don't understand, but let them do. But on the phases, we can do better. But the big thing is, of course, if Mind Reset helps people to have a better sleep, then you have automatically a better balance score, and that will help a lot of people. Now, another thing which is interesting to say, do you have a hybrid car?
No.
Do you? No. Look, I'm now driving for 11 years a hybrid car. It's a Toyota or a Lexus is the same. What is extremely interesting, sorry,
Bless you.
the body works like this. You make energy when you need it. You don't store. You only store energy for 5 seconds if you want to have aerobic energy. That is that you have a reflex. Yeah, you can do this. The rest is fat, that is longer term burning of fat to get energy. What is interesting, if you have a balance score, you will have noticed your average balance score will never be 70%. It will be 51, 55 if you're good. That's exactly what the body is doing. Every storage is a loss of efficiency. And when you need it, the heart starts to work. There's only one brand who discovered that 25 years ago, that's Toyota. They made a small battery, they recharge it in like 2 minutes, and they use it in the next 2 minutes, and they recharge again. And the others, they put 500 kilogram in a car to make it move, which is completely opposite to biological systems.
By the way, I'm now making a note to get a new car and make sure it's a Toyota. The technology makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. They were far, they still are far ahead of all the others. They got it to the level like the biological system tries to make it very efficient, and they use that. These are smart guys.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
really
And it's
clever.
amazing. I have that car for 11 years. It's amazing. The low fuel consumption. It's amazing if you learn how to drive it. It's really amazing. Yeah.
Now, I got a question here from Andrew. He says, "Do you use the period of I think you've answered this one, but do you use the period of inactivity to assess REM sleep, as is it's supposed to match sort of the
Yeah.
hypotonicity?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, a very good question. The period of inactivity is a very important one. Why? Because if you are inactive, then during sleep, that is when you go to the minimal heart rate, the minimal. Because once you are in the bed and you do this for longer than 5 seconds, the heart rate will do something. Yeah. But when you are completely inactive and the sensor is really accurate enough to feel if I do this right hand, left, it will measure it. That is the minimal heart rate. That is a measure for what we call the basal component for that individual. Every, it's a very good question. Every individual needs a minimal amount of energy to keep the organs functioning. And that happens when you're not dreaming, you're sleeping, you have an empty stomach, and you're not active in no way. That is what we catch every night when you're not active. Yeah. And mostly that happens like after 3 in the morning, then is the stomach is empty. That energy is the individual amount of energy that individual body needs to keep the organs functioning.
Now, in that, you have just answered, and we'll open this up a little further. You have just answered why people should make sure they don't eat after 8 o'clock at night. Now,
Absolutely.
open it up. I just thought that makes sense. So just open this up a little.
Sure, sure.
Why is it to sort of eat at 6 or something?
Yeah. But also when you eat for a lot of food, not for all, it gives you more energy than it takes to digest. Yeah, there is also food that give you nothing. It takes more to digest than what is in that stuff, in that food stuff. So completely true. When you eat late, that's not good for your sleep, but at least it gives you energy. But when you drink alcohol, it takes much more energy to break it down than what it gives. And that is why you always have a bad sleep. And a bad sleep is a bad balance score the day after.
If you've spoken to Luke Clients in the last 24 hours, we're both in trouble. The
No,
two of us,
but
we're partnered up. So for the
but
next
you
6 months, we're alcohol free.
know what is interesting? It is so difficult for people to change their habit. But what we see in most people who like wine, they change their habit. They start to reduce less alcohol, to use less alcohol and reduce the use of it because they see the effect on the sleep and on the balance score.
Well, we're going to test alcohol-free Guinness, right?
Ah, interesting, interesting.
Alcohol-free, and
Alcohol free.
so I'm going to see if it has an impact. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
If
yeah,
it has an
yeah.
impact, it's out. But I'm going to
But
test it just to
but
see.
you see, if I drink one glass of red wine to socialize, because since
Yeah.
2001 I don't drink alcohol like I used to do. It's maybe like on Christmas evening I will drink one glass of red wine with the family and the kids. But even that I see it. I see it in my measurements
See, that's
immediately.
a problem. I reduced my alcohol intake so badly that like two pints is nothing. It's
Yeah.
serious. For
Now,
me, 2 days
and
later, I'm suffering.
absolutely another interesting thing. When you eat or when you drink whatever, you will see it in the mind stretch, which is strange, yeah? But eating has always a mental component. A lot of people like to eat, they enjoy, and that's mental. But there is also part of misclassification because this energy, when the digestion system starts, is not related to movement. So the algorithm is misclassifying it with the actual accuracy we have. But we have this year again 8 master theses. And one of them is to see when people are eating by getting the XYZ from this thing that we know, okay, this is eating. But there's always a mental component. For a lot of people, they enjoy. People who work hard, they have a moment that they don't have the working stress, so they eat and keep eating, and a lot of them, they gain weight. Or the other ones, in the United States, you see them often, they eat to get rid of it. They are under time pressure. It should go fast.
Yeah.
That meal is not to enjoy, it is just to keep alive. And but there's always a mental component in it. And you see that in mind
Yeah.
stretch. Yeah. So we are learning step by step by falling and standing. Yeah.
Well, that's science. That's how it should be.
Of course.
I love it. I love it. Damn it, I'm sure we must have covered it. Any question, anything I've missed? I think we've covered it all there.
Yeah, as I said, the duration of sleep, we feel comfortable. We need more work on detecting the phases, the sleep phases that we see now. We are phase this, then you are in phase 2, 3, 4. That we still have to improve. We are not good enough. I think we are much further than everybody, but not good enough. But we should use your thing now that to improve the sleep of people will be a game changer for millions of people.
Daniel, I have messaged, Anne might have told you, I have messaged when I was chatting to Anne, that we've now got, obviously we're purchasing as we go, because I want to keep you guys funded. It's a small beginning, but we now have a queue of people wanting in. Why? Because, and this is, we got to mention Dubai, is an English-born, moved to Netherlands. Now he's a professional golf coach. He has his own set in Dubai. So he took everything as a professional golfer in Netherlands. He's now in Dubai. And when I shared with him, obviously you guys have chatted about forever, but we couldn't get his guys to opt into using mind reset because they didn't get it. Well, it doesn't do anything. They couldn't understand the mental component. But now, with the sleep position, now these guys are using is it Whoop?
Yeah, Whoop, very expensive and inaccurate.
Very expensive, inaccurate, wonderful. Yes. And this is why I've always stuck. The money for me was always with Daniel Berckmans. Stick with Mr. Berckmans.
Yeah, the Whoop has huge branding. It's incredible how much people use Whoop. NASA was using Whoop for 2 years before they switched to the stupid Fitbit and using our thing. It's they have branding and they are like a trend. Young people, they use Whoop, but they have the nice thing, but they do nothing with it.
Now, what he's got a good group of golfers all training in Dubai, and obviously golf, they all want to make them big money. We'll chat commercially, not on this chat at the moment, but what he's told us is it makes them sick. It makes them sick because all of their lovely stats show, yes, you slept for 8 hours, and yes, you're in low energy. So now they say, well, I don't need a digital reminder of I'm not feeling energized.
Yeah.
Now, in the new year, we're going to look to, as soon as we've got our stats, we're going to look to bring all of his guys with Biorex, whether you like it or not. We're going to bring them all in with Biorex, and they've already got their before stats. They've got months of it. They're golfers, but we're going to bring in our intervention. Now that marries you and I, because you know and I know no one has filled the subconscious gap of sleep. Everybody can monitor it. Nobody's made an intervention in the middle of sleep. And I believe if we can prove this, then they have to go back to the drawing board on the science of sleep. It's going to be 2025 is going to be an exciting time, because for my position, my 30 years is I've looked at sleep as the position of resetting mind and body.
Yeah.
Well, if there's a trauma in there that's subconscious, it's stored, it will continue to reduce energy. If I give an example, say a person like has a height phobia, right? Now, she isn't consciously thinking she has a height phobia, but when her husband says, let's go skiing, the height phobia, nice smile, I forget nothing, the height phobia comes up, and maybe she doesn't want to ski that slope, or I like the one where there's lots of blues and no reds, or it influences.
Yeah.
But the height phobia must be present 24/7. It may not be fully
Absolutely
active, but it has to
Yeah.
be on the screen scanning for heights. The same with spiders, the same with, you see what, so if we can clear this in their sleep, we have a model now for clearing non-diagnosed trauma.
Yeah, it's the sleep is crucial also for animals. Yeah. There was in the United States a colleague who studied the sleep of cows. Really interesting. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
You know, of course, Matthew Walker, the sleep expert. Yeah. Now he gave no, and you know Stephen Lores, the neurologist. Yeah. So Stephen gave a presentation in Ghent, and he said, and Matthew Walker was there, and Matthew had an EEG sensor on the forehead. And so Stephen said to the room, there was about 300 people, I will give a meditation session and I will show on the screen the effect on the brain, because Matthew is sitting here just as a test person. And he started to do the meditation and everybody was following. With me, I did measure nothing. I was not very responsive, but my colleague was with me. He measured it with MindStretch. And we told Stephen, yeah, what you didn't show, because they showed nothing, the thing didn't work, their EEG sensor. We see it with MindStretch.
Now, that's going to open up the next conversation, which is lovely, right? Now, by the way, obviously everybody calls me Matt because my second name is Matthew, yeah? And I'm from Walker. Walker is the town I was born in, right? The village. So I'm Matthew from Walker. Just when you look at the heading of the new book, right?
Yeah.
It'll be Matthew from Walker. So Google will have fun comparing sleep experts. Yeah.
Good.
Because I want to bring all of the biotics to, because you've got the gold standard on sleep. So if I can bring you your evidence in with the book and the results that are coming, now we look at sleep. I want to hold you.
Say what you need, we can provide you with text.
I want to hold you with that event, right? So I propose to Mark Johnson, he's my co-author, he's a professor of chronic pain. Now, I proposed to Mark, he hasn't got back to me, Christmas is here, but I'm chatting with a friend of mine a few weeks ago. She's just had her hip replaced and she's in chronic pain.
Yeah.
Now, pain is my department. So she says to me, Matt, what can you do for me? And I said, well, you had your hip replaced, so it's a little late, but let's chat. She says, well, the funny thing is, if I go for meditation for 1 hour, for 3 hours afterwards, I have no pain.
Yeah.
I said, well, hang on. If you have 1 hour in relaxation equals 3 hours no pain, how come if you have 8 hours sleep, you wake up fully crippled and it takes to lunchtime to become more flexible. Now, my hypothesis, I can tell by the smile on your face, is it possible that when she goes to sleep, the EMI appears, her system responds to the stress, flooding her system with inflammation during that process, so that when she wakes up, she's flooded with inflammation, which cramps up the system. So actually waking breaks the inflammation. So by lunchtime, she's starting to move. Because if we compare sleep, sleep is not guided. You go to sleep, your mind is going to do what your mind does.
Yeah.
You go to meditation, it's guided. Guided meaning there is no room for emotional memory images to download.
Yes.
So it sounds like a logical hypothesis.
Yeah. I think absolutely. Look, the meditation, we have then done measurements with a Buddhist who is really trained in meditation. And we had another thesis on that I can send to you. We prove, we pick it up always when he does it, we pick it up by mind stretch.
But my point is, if it's meditation, if it's guided, it's with purpose, it is not the same as sleep.
Yeah.
This is the challenge. Agree. They're two different things. If you meditate, you can relax. If you go to sleep, all bets are off. And your system needs to clear everything in order to survive.
Right.
But if you're waking up tomorrow and every day you wake up with 40% energy, your survival process is actually causing your demise.
Sure. And look, the different components that need energy and where the heart rate has to work for, that is the basal, the immune system, the physical, the mental, the thermal, there is nothing else. What happens is the brain gives a signal to the signal molecules like noradrenaline and cortisol, etc. And that is when the energy comes, that is when the ATP is produced to provide energy to the brain or the body or the muscle. That is the whole system. And that is why heart rate and activity allow us to measure all those components and distinguish. And that is the biggest advantage we have. Yeah. But that is still not changing something. You need then like mind reset or something to change, and then the continuous measuring will see, does it now improve, yes or no? Unfortunately...
No, our time is up, I know.
Yeah, I have another one at 4.
Now, I look forward to have a wonderful Christmas. In the new year, it'll be about February when we've got the data, but I'm excited to share it with you.
Absolutely. I wish you one thing, that is good health. How is your wife?
My wife, believe it or not, I could share it. She did 10,000 steps today.
Okay.
Don't worry. Don't worry. And we're monitoring. And she's got her own evidence now. Bioix is watching. She's picking up.
Take care of her and yourself.
Brilliant. Thanks. The best.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Matt. Bye-bye.